All right, I'm going to make a start. I am recording this class, so you will be able to get access to it later on for reference. Also, just keep your opinions of, especially your classmates and academics and other people, to yourself. Otherwise, it will end up on the recording. Or any other political views, I don't know. Today what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be showing InDesign how it should be used and all the power and everything that you get from using InDesign. I am using the Mac version, but I will translate. It's basically Command C, for example, is Command Copy, is Control C on the PC. So pretty much everything's the same anyway. The only reason I'm using on the Mac side is, well, because I'm using my Mac, and I've got some really good screen record software which will record my my keyboard shortcuts as well, which is really handy because otherwise I've got to explain every single time I go control something. I have to vocalize it, otherwise you have no idea what's going on with the screen recording. Anyway. So, first of all, I just want to talk about the difference between Word and InDesign, okay? These are two very different programs. They might seem the same, but they're actually very different. Word is a word processor, and it's kind of something that you kind of fill with content, and then you start to sort of like, change the format and the fonts and stuff afterwards. Not strictly true, but that's generally how you use Word. InDesign is a design program, and it is intended for graphic designers to lay out documents. It is heavily based on styles and is very reliant on you using InDesign correctly for the more powerful features to come out. Now, it's a really good idea if you follow along with this and you learn all the character styles and object styles and paragraph styles, because at the end of it, we will be able to generate a lot of content, especially things like contents pages, and change stuff, especially to your layout, which if it's a multi-page document and someone says, I think you should change your font, it's going to change your entire document, okay? Now, if you go and select all and go and change the font, it's going to be a bit of a nightmare. It's going to take you hours for one, because you might have different fonts for headings and titles and bold and all that sort of carry on, and then it's going to reflow all wrong. Who left their phone on? So it's going to reflow incorrectly, and you're going to spend hours and hours and hours changing it just for someone to say, no, you should change it back to what it was or try something else, and it will drive you insane. So we're going to be using styles, which will actually make a lot of sense as you go through it. If you have used InDesign before, I'm not saying that this is strictly true, but chances are you're not using it to its full capabilities anyway. I've come across many graphic designers who don't use it in the correct manner. There is a lot more in InDesign from what you're going to learn today, but this will definitely get you in the right direction, and it will definitely set you up really, really, really well for doing especially large documents with things like figures, images and lists and numbered things and all sorts of carry on like that. All right. So, first thing is, as soon as you launch InDesign, you're greeted with this sort of interface. And we can go create new document just by clicking to the left there. And we see another rather user-friendly looking interface. The only thing that I want you to click here is the primary text frame. This thing's really handy. It will set up a text frame, so that's where you can put text into automatically, and it will automatically link to other pages. Okay, so remember, we're designing a document and we're going to fill it with content. Okay, so the way that all the text flows from one page to another isn't necessarily like Word, where it just goes onto the next page. Usually we have text boxes, or we might have like some crazy layout where we've got a text box in the top left corner, then we're going to have an image here, and then another text box over here, and then another image over here, and it can all flow from one place to another. So the primary text frame will just give us a box to start off with. We've got some other very important decisions to make here. Probably the biggest one is facing pages. So that is that when you open up your book, the faces are you're printing on both sides. So that's what facing pages are. If you're just going to be printing on one side of the document, then you turn that off. Okay, I'm going to do facing pages because there's a few little cool things that we can do with that later on. Now you can kind of preload it with a whole bunch of empty pages, and you can also start at different numbers. Now you will notice that in InDesign there is, it will say you can create a new book or a new document. A book is simply a collection of documents. Okay, so you could have a whole bunch of different documents. So like, you know, the cover page might be a separate InDesign document, or chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3 might all be separate InDesign documents. All a book does is says what's in the book, which documents, and which one will like dictate the style of the entire book. So if I go, okay, well chapter 1's the going to be dictating the style of everything. If I change the styles in there, it will change in all the other documents as well. So that's the difference between a book, which you'll see up here, new book, and document. I don't know what a library is. I don't know if I've ever clicked that button, but there you go. All right, so we're just going to do A4 facing pages with a primary text frame, and we end up with that.
Do you have to, to start with, if you know that you're going to be binding your book, and you need space additional? For
Yes, yeah, that's a very good idea. You don't have to set it up now, but the way that we're going to manage all this anyway, we should be able to make those changes, and it will just, everything will flow nicely through there. Okay? But yes, if you are laying out a book, really good idea now is to contact the binder who's going to be putting that book together and find out what the margins need to be, because they'll have, you'll lose a bit of paper space, if you like, in the join of the book. And so they might say, okay, well you need a 15 mil margin in the middle. It's like, cool, especially if you've got images and things like that going across a spread, then that's going to be very important. However, yeah, we are going to design this really smartly so we can make those adjustments and everything will just flow on nicely. All right, so we've got this text page here. What we're going to do is just go right click on the text frame and go insert placeholder text, which is there for me, fill with placeholder text. Okay, and that's just going to fill our document with faux Latin. You could submit this, but I think someone will eventually figure out that it is not real Latin. It used to always start with, what's it, ipsum lorem ipsum. It doesn't anymore. I don't know why. Which is a little bit boring. But anyway, my one starts with oratium virum. Awesome. Okay. Now all I've done there is I've just hit enter. So I'm pretending that these first two words are my title of my document. Okay. All right. On the right hand side, now if you don't see these, you'll notice that under workspace we've got a few presets for how the whole screen's set out. So if you ever lose anything, if you go and close stuff that you weren't meant to close, you can just come back into here and go and click on, for example, advanced, and it's going to show you all of our paragraph styles and all that sort of thing again. I think by default it's on essentials, which I think is no different. Yeah. So I'm using the essentials one at the moment. Okay, and then on the very right hand side you'll see there's paragraph styles, character styles, and object styles. We're going to talk a lot about these three types of styles. There's also table styles as well. What a style does is it dictates how that piece of text, or in our case the paragraph is the first one we're going to do, is going to look. Okay, that's the font, the spacing, all that sort of carry on. It's all going to be dictated by this paragraph style. Now you can use the normal tools up the top here. So if you notice up here we've got something that looks a hell of a lot like Word, and you can do that. You can highlight words and change the font and all that sort of carry on. However, you will find actually that when we look at this paragraph styles, everything that you can do to the text to stylize it is all in one place. So it's actually really logical. And I far prefer actually just doing a paragraph style from scratch because you can see everything. And I'm going to go through what all those settings are. You will find that, yeah, otherwise you're hunting through menus for all sorts of things and it gets a little bit confusing and you can never find anything. However, this is going to be a lot more simple. Now, paragraph styles, it's nearly always a paragraph style, okay? People always get confused with what's a paragraph style and what's a character style. A paragraph style will get applied to all of the text up until the carriage return, okay? So, you know, blah, 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 quick brown fox, return, that's a paragraph style, okay? You don't have to highlight the text or anything like that. If your cursor's in there and you assign a paragraph style, that entire paragraph will get that style. A character style, which we'll visit later on, is kind of like applying bold, okay? So instead of applying bold, so instead of going and selecting a word and going bold, what we're going to do is we're going to select a word and give it a character style called bold. Now the advantage of that is that if someone says, your bolds aren't really that exciting, I think they should be red, you would have to go through, I don't know how many pages a thesis is, and go and highlight all of your bold fonts and change them red. Yeah, good luck. With a style, we just go to the bold character style and go, how about red? And it goes through your entire document. Everywhere where that character style has been applied, it will turn it red. Now, a character style is an override. So what that means is it will be whatever the paragraph style is. So if it was Comic Sans, Lord help us, and you applied the bold character style to one of those words, it's going to turn red. It's still going to be Comic Sans. The only thing the character style will do is turn it red. Okay, so paragraph styles get applied to everything. It's nearly always a paragraph style. If it's an individual word where you would normally just highlight it, like to make something italic or bold or something like that, or a subscript, we can do that with a character style, and it's a lot smarter to do it that way. All right. So our basic layout. Now, lots of people work differently. I like to leave basic paragraph as is. I just leave that one there because I know that it's to go back to my default. I can leave it. It's all good. But what I do is I have a paragraph style called normal, and that is just my normal text. Okay, so I just need to call that normal. And normal, I don't do a hell of a lot with normal. I might set the basic font. So if I'm going to use Helvetica Nui for everything, I might set it there. But generally I leave normal pretty simple, except the language. I change that to be, where are we? We are going to go through these things. Why can't I see language? It's in here somewhere. Oh, here we go. Under advanced character formats, it's got the languages set to English UK, so I don't even have to change that. This is quite convenient because it means that what we're going to do is everything's going to be based off normal. Okay, so if whatever I set, this is called nesting styles. So if I base one paragraph style on another paragraph style, so in this case normal, if I change the language, anything that's based on normal, so like heading, I'm going to say it's based on normal. If I change the language of normal, the entire document will change language. So this is really important if you have to send things to America for publication. Okay, you just change the language in one place to US, and it will highlight all the words that you now have spelt wrong. Okay? So if it's anything that you're going to change for your entire document, this is the place to change it. You've got normal. So that's nice and convenient. So I'm just going to leave that as is. Okay, I'm going to do another new paragraph style, and this is going to be called heading. Okay. All right. So there's heading. Now, this is a little gotcha, right? If you create new paragraph styles and you start playing around with it, if your cursor is sitting inside a box, it has now been applied to that piece of text. Okay? Actually, I'm going to create another one while I'm here. In fact, I'm going to do this intentionally. I'm going to move my cursor down to the next one. See, it says basic paragraph now. If I go new, I'm going to call this one body. Okay, so body I'm going to use pretty much all the time. Okay, so I've got three styles I've created: normal, heading, and body. So let's have a look at body first. Just make sure that in the bottom left corner that preview is switched on. I think by default it's switched off, otherwise you're not going to see any changes. So it's just right down the bottom left corner. I can come in here now and I can change my font. You can search in here if I go do you guys even have Helvetica? Should do, I think, if you've got InDesign installed. So I'm going to change it to Helvetica Nui, and I will instantly see that the paragraph where I created this will instantly change. You'll notice that other paragraphs aren't changing because they don't have this style attached to them. All right. Right, this is going to be a little bit of a marathon, this bit. So, we're going to go through a lot of these settings. Some of them will be very obvious, so like the one that I'm on at the moment, the basic character formats are very obvious. Okay, we've got the font style. So in this case, this will change with different fonts. Now you'll notice that programs like Word, generally you choose a font and it's got bold, italic, underline, or some combination of them. And that doesn't take into regard what that font is actually designed to do. Now this particular font has a whole bunch of them. Condensed bold, condensed black, ultralight, italic, thin italic, light, blah, 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 etc., etc. Okay, so these are actual totally separately designed fonts all inside Helvetica Nui. Okay, so when you're choosing your font, it's a really good idea to have a look at what that font is capable of and what is in there. What Word does, if you get some fancy font, right? Normally it's just that one font, so it could be Western style or something. In Word, if you go and highlight it and you change it to italic, it does a faux italic because that font wasn't designed to be italic, and so it will skew them. And sometimes that will be kind of devastating because the font wasn't designed to do that. You might end up with overlaps and all sorts of weird things happening to the font. And InDesign, we can fake it, but we have to do that quite intentionally. Otherwise, we're always just using the fonts as they were designed to be used. Okay, so I'm going to use light for my font style. I will give you kind of a crash course in page layout along the way as well. So generally, God, I can't actually remember what the rules were. Each line you want to be about 10 to 12 words long. So if you've got more than that, it becomes hard to read. So what have I got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So yeah, this is quite a large piece of text. So not too bad. You'll notice in here we can change the font size. 12 point's nice. Keep in mind who your audience are. Okay, if it's kids or something like that or elderly, using a bigger font size is going to make it easier for them to read. Whoever's reading this document, you want to make it easy for them. The leading is going to increase the gap between our lines. Okay, so we can increase the spacing between here. That's called leading. You can also set that to auto, and then it'll automatically change depending on the font size. Tracking is the distance between the letters. Okay, so quite cool for titles. With headings, or actually with page layout, right, there should be an order to what's visible, okay? And you've got different ways of bringing people's attention to things. The first one is obviously the size of it, okay? So when we make a heading, we generally make it bigger, okay? So it brings attention to that. But there's a lot of other things that we can do. So we can change the color, we can change the font, we can increase the tracking so that it kind of brings your attention to that word. There's something different about it, okay? So it's things that will stand out. There's the white space, which technically is what I'm doing with the tracking and the leading, is that I'm increasing the white space around it. If you've got a completely blank page with one word in the center of it, you're going to be instantly attracted to what is that one word, okay? Because it's got a huge amount of white space around it. If that word was buried in amongst a whole bunch of other text, you're not going to see it. Okay, so white space is also really important. So what you should be doing is when you look at your page, what's the most important thing? Generally the heading, okay? What's the next important thing? Well, the first paragraph after that's really important. So you might want to change that. And you'll see in magazines that quite often it'll be a different color, or it might have increased tracking or leading, okay? There might be a few pieces in the text that are really important, and so they'll actually pull those pieces of text out and change them or put them in a box or something like that. So there's lots of ways of dictating what people see and how they navigate around it. So a lot of this is quite important. All right. We have got some other things in here. I'm not going to go into in too much detail. Most people ask me what ligatures are. Ligatures are, have you ever seen if you had the word find, F-I, quite often if it's a serif font, they'll actually be joined together. You're going to see this all over the place now. Where it's an actual totally different character. It's not an F and an I, it's like this kind of weird F-I joined together, where the dot of the I is actually the top of the F. So that's called a ligature. And so you'll see that with a few other little characters where they combine into one. You can do underline and strike through and all that sort of carry on here as well. Under advanced, this is where we've got the ability to skew our font. So if we want to make a faux italic, I could make a faux italic by skewing it and it will push it over, okay, as opposed to actually choosing the italic font. Ideally, I should choose the italic font. It's designed to be skewed. And we've also got the ability to stretch our fonts, so we can have a really stretched long font or a really stretched wide font. So we can mess around with it a lot. And as we saw before, there's also our language. Indents and spacing. Now, this is really important and seldom understood. You know, when you're writing a document and like after a paragraph, you'll do a couple of carriage returns, start the next paragraph. So there's a gap. Not a great idea when you're working on a big document, because quite often what happens is you start playing around further up the beginning of your document, and it pushes those carriage returns onto a new page, and then you've got a gap at the top of your page, and so you're constantly going through your entire document, either adding or removing these like carriage returns. If you find yourself doing that, warning. Also, another thing, so like that's the gap between these two paragraphs here. Actually, I'm just going to go OK for a second, and I'm just going to apply this. I just select all these and go body. Cool. Now body's attached to all of them, and I'm just going to edit it again and go back to our spacing. So if I say I want some space after my paragraph, okay, I'm going to 5mm gap. Okay, now I've got a 5mm gap. Another good thing with graphic design, all your gaps should be the same. So you should decide on what that gap's going to be. So it might be 5mm. Cool. All of your gaps should be 5mm. The gap between the picture and the text, the gap between the two lines of the two paragraphs, wherever you use that same spacing, it's going to look lovely. Okay, so we want to use the same spacing between things, and we want to align as many things as we can as well. So that's space after. We can also do our indents here, so we can do a left indent. Okay, it's going to push everything away from the edge of the text box. Okay, so you can see my heading isn't indented, okay, but my paragraphs are. You can also do space before, which is quite handy. That will guarantee a gap between something else. Everybody has a different way of doing it. I tend to use space after. See, space before is going to guarantee that I've got a gap above this paragraph as well. I would tend to have a space after my heading and a space after my paragraph. It's 6 of one, half a dozen of another though. I love it when people find that one because they just hear the little clicking mouses. Click, 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 click. Okay. So there you go. So that's, now align to grid is quite good. If you've got like text on two boxes that are parallel to each other, it'll try and line up to the grid. It does mean that sometimes you get odd spacings with things, but the text on the left-hand side will line up with the text on the right-hand side. Even if you move that box down like 2mm, it'll always try and align the text with each other. So that is quite handy to align to grid. Totally depends on what you're designing. Okay, if this is more of a document like what we kind of see on the page, pointless. You know, we're just going to see odd gaps in places. If it was a magazine spread or a newspaper spread or something like that, you might really want that so that everything all looks nice and neat. We can also do all of our tabs in here. I might come back to tabs later on. Tabs are one thing that, yeah, if you're in Word as well, it's a really good idea to understand how tabs work. Again, it makes things really easy to make sure they're all aligned nicely. You can do like decimal point tabs and things like that. So if you've got a list of numbers, that all the numbers all line up on the decimal point rather than on something else. We can also do things like, you know, when you see like on a contents page and it says, you know, chapter 1, and then it's got ... 1. So we can do that with the tab characters, is that we can actually have a leader in there and it will put little dots in between it. I'll come back to that though. Paragraph rules. So this is, well, it's just that really, it's a line. And we can change where that appears, so we can put the rule above a paragraph. Typically you wouldn't see this normally. However, you do, especially in newspapers and magazines, and they'll have on the last paragraph, they'll have a line underneath it. So you can actually have a paragraph style called last paragraph, and it does a line underneath it. You'll notice that there's rule above, I can switch that off, and rule below. So in that case, I would have a rule below, and I can just offset it a little bit. Cool. You can also give it a left indent and a right indent. So this is classic, sort of how you'd see it would be something like that. 25 millimeters, let's say, and say 25 on the other side. Cool, so you have like a little line, and you can even have like a wavy line or something squiggly or whatever. Yeah, it looks like a cheesy sort of high school sort of newsletter now. You can also switch those off. All right, we've got paragraph borders. So this will actually stick a box around our paragraph, which is quite handy. Shading, so that would be really appropriate. You know, when you see the text boxes that have pulled out, you know, and then I was attacked by a crocodile, and they have it like in a little coloured box, you know, with a frilly edge or something. So we can set up a paragraph style that will do that for us. Keep options. So this is really important when we get to multi-page layouts. In fact, I'm just going to say OK, and also headings and things like that. I quite often will have heading, first paragraph, body, and last paragraph as styles. So that way, my first paragraph, I can say keep that with the heading, because the last thing you want is a heading and then the text to be on the next page. That would suck. Okay, so I can tell it to do that. In this case, I could actually tell the heading to keep with the next couple of lines in that way. So for example, let's say I've got a heading down here, right? We'll just try and force it. Okay, so I've just put a carriage return in. See, it's got a new page down there. And we'll just put a carriage return in here as well. Oops, now I've got a small problem. I didn't really want it there. I wanted to try and force it to be at the bottom of the page. Hang on, this will do it. All right. So here's my heading, right? And that looks terrible, having a heading that's right next to, is right at the end of my page with one line. Now, remember, we've gone and put a bit of effort into the body, right? And we've gone and done all sorts of formatting and stuff to it. What I can actually do is I can say, see this, it says based on, and it says it's based on normal. That's all good. But what I can actually do is say, no, base this on body. And so now it's exactly the same as body, but there's going to be some changes. So the first thing I'm going to change is that the font is actually going to be ultralight, and it's going to be much bigger. Okay, so 20-point ultralight, which has just gone and forced it onto the next page, which doesn't really illustrate what I wanted to show, but anyway. Hang on. I'm just going to delete some text. There we go. Cool, so there it is there. That's my new heading. Maybe I'm going to increase the tracking a bit with that as well. Oops, cancel that. I've opened up the wrong one. Be really careful, because if you go and select inside a text, remember, and you go, I want to edit heading, you apply heading to that paragraph style. A really smart idea is to click outside the box before you start editing these, just because it's so easy to accidentally apply a paragraph style to the paragraph that you are currently typing in. Okay, so here's heading. So here's my, where is it? My tracking, so I can increase my tracking a little bit and make it look a little bit sort of a bit more trendy. There we go. And now if I go to my keep options, I can say keep with the following 3 lines. Uh-oh. Alright, my mouse has stopped tracking for some reason. The next 3 lines. Cool, and then instantly that paragraph got dropped onto the next line. Okay, so that's kind of cool. I can also say keep lines together. I'm actually going to do that with the body. So if I go to the body, I'm just going to go to keep options, and I say keep lines together. So this is going to avoid, see, I've got like this one line here all by itself. Or actually, I don't think I can, because I think that's probably just a separate paragraph. But Actually, I'm going to switch that off for a second. Let's see if we can force it to do it. Yeah, so that line there is all by itself. That's not cool. I can't remember if it's called a widow or an orphan. Does anybody know? I think it's a widow, it's a sentence, eh? Yeah. Thank you. Where's my keep option? So I can say keep at least 2 lines. Okay, and so now you can see that I've got 2 lines here. I can say, well, that's not enough. At the end, I want at least 3 lines. The start, 3 lines, and it should try and keep things together a bit better. You can say all lines in the paragraph as well, which would be quite important for some types of things, like a title. You wouldn't want going on to the next page. But already you can see we're kind of getting a nice little layout here. All right, so I'm still in the, is there anything else in the keep that I need to, the start paragraph, it says anywhere. This is really handy if it's like chapter. Okay, so if it's chapter heading, right? Well, a chapter heading starts on its own page. You never see a chapter heading start halfway through a page, right? And quite often, in fact, if it's a book, it'll quite often be on the right-hand side, okay? And it'll have chapter 1. Okay, that might mean that you've only got a couple words on the left-hand page. Who cares? Sometimes it's even a completely blank page. We can say in here, where do you want to start? So you can start in a new column. Where is that? Oh, there we go, sorry. The next column, next frame, on the next page, on the next odd page, or the next even page. So the odd pages should be on the right-hand side. So I can say start on the odd page, and it will start chapter 1. As soon as I go and apply that style, it will instantly put that onto the next right-hand page. Pretty cool, eh? We don't want to do that for our body text because that would be a bit weird. But a heading might want to start in a new column. Yeah, so if you've got like a layout, you might just want to, okay, well, I want at the top of the column. Okay, it doesn't matter, it doesn't have to be on the next page, but the next column would be nice. I don't want a heading starting halfway down a page. That's how you do it. Hyphenation. Hyphenation is, you should really avoid it unless absolutely necessary. Now, this is something that I might change for my entire document. So if I want to change it for my entire document, remember we've based everything on normal. So if I go and turn hyphenation off on normal, hyphenation will turn off my entire document. Hyphenation is nice to try and clean things up. The default settings though are, you'll end up with a lot of hyphens. So you can see there are like 2 hyphens and one after another. That's shocking. Now you can say, well, how about we just go with fewer hyphens, and you should see those disappear. Okay, those ones have even disappeared. I'm just going to try and arrange my screen a bit better so we can kind of see things a bit better. Okay, so there's a hyphen there, and there's one there. So there's like 2 on the page now. That's not too bad. But as I said, probably a good idea. Remember, body should be based on, based on normal. There we go. And if we go to normal, so again, make sure you've got nothing selected by accident. And I'm going to go to hyphenation, and I'm going to switch hyphenation off. Okay, then all my hyphens disappear. Okay, so the sacrifice is that this outside edge gets a bit more jagged. Now you could say, I could just justify my text, and then that would be nice and clean. Justified text should really be avoided, especially for body copy and long paragraphs, because what happens is you lose your place in that paragraph. Have you ever found that you're reading a body text and you end up reading the same sentence again? Okay, especially if it's a really long sentence, or a really long line, I should say. So if it's like 15, 20 words or something, and it's all fully justified, you constantly lose your place in there, and it gets quite frustrating to read. And the last thing you want, especially if it's something like a thesis, is the person reading it to be frustrated with your document just because of the way that you've laid out the text. So yes, justification looks great from a distance. So if it was a poster or something, yeah. If it's small amounts of text, looks nice. But for big body copy, like the contents, you really want to keep actually a little bit of a jagged edge to it anyway, because it helps your eye navigate through the text. All right, oops, I don't want to open up normal, I want to open up body again. How are we doing? Okay, so that's hyphenation. Justification, oh, in fact, there's the justify. So this is all the rules to do with how it does the justifying. It's like I knew that was coming up, because that is also, you select it from, no, where is it? Somewhere. Did I miss that? Oh, here we go. Under indents and spacing, sorry, there was also the how it justifies the text. So in this case, we've got it set to left. Notice we've also got towards spine and away from spine. So if you had like a page number, or at the bottom of the page, that would usually be away from the spine, so it would always be aligned to the edge. So rather than having left page number style and right page number style, you would just say away from spine. Okay, and so then it'll always be pushed off away from the spine. Is there anything else? Full justify means that even single words or a line that's only got a couple of words will be stretched all the way to the other end. I don't know why you would use that. Center justify will be justified, the last word would be in the center, left and right. You can figure it out.
So
All right.
what's the normal again?
Just left. If it's set to the left, that's how we've got it at the moment. Otherwise, it would be left justify, which means that this would be straight edge, and if there's one word at the end, it would just be left justified.
Your body text, your headings, what so the normal is just everything.
Yeah, so normal is kind of just like, that's just whatever you change in normal, everything's based on normal. So if I change the language, it will change for everything else. And you can read this, because you watch. If we go up to general, see it says, and now I've been messing with a lot of stuff, but it says this is normal, and it's got all these different changes being made. That's probably not a great one to look at, because if we have a look at our heading, it'll be a lot easier to read. It is body, but it's ultralight 20 point with tracking set to 280, and it's got a keep rule in there with the next 3 words. So you can actually read off what it is. So this is quite handy, because if I wanted to make a red heading, I can base it on heading and just change it to red, and that means that if I change heading, red heading would also change. The only difference is it would be heading plus it's red. Okay, so you can actually read these off, and in fact, if it's like, this heading, I just want to go back to the same as what body is. You go reset to base, it'll become the same as body, because that's what it's based on, and now I want to just make the text bigger. Cool, that's my new heading style. So it's very easy to manage. You can even actually, if you came up with a totally new style, you can delete the old style and it will say, what do you want to replace it with? I want to replace it with new body. And it will replace everywhere where body was used with new body. So you shouldn't be highlighting stuff and changing fonts. All right. Okay, so we're doing quite well. Oh, this is span columns. If you're using a 2-column layout, you can have a heading that goes across both columns. So like the chapter heading, for example, rather than having to kind of come up with some sort of crazy sort of like text box just to stick the title in, you can just say span 2 columns and it will stretch straight across both columns. Drop caps. Okay, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to stop here for a second. I'm going to make I'm just going to put this in here. A new style. Cool. I'm going to call this first paragraph. Cool. And I'm going to go to the drop cap. There's only one rule with the drop cap, only one per page, or even one per spread actually. They're generally only used at the beginning of a chapter, and it's totally up to you. Some people love them, some people hate them. I don't know. I'd take or leave them. And we can just set how many lines we want that drop cap to be. And we can also say things like, I want a new character style. So remember, the character style is just going to be applied to this one character. Okay, so this is what I was saying, like italic or bold. Okay, and I'm going to change the font to some kind of fancy font. I don't know which one. Bauhaus. Hit preview, you should be able to see it. We move these boxes around. I'm going to call it drop cap. And we're going to increase, we don't care about the size. Cool. And now I've got a very cool looking O. Okay, and I can make that bigger as well. You can also have more than one letter. I don't know why. I don't think I've ever seen a 2-character drop cap. That would be really weird. Okay, while I'm here though, I'm also going to show, we've also got down here nested styles. So a nested style is very similar. So we can apply a style. So I'm going to do a new style here, new character style. I'm going to call this blue. And I'm going to go to the character color and make it blue. Okay. And now you can see that we've got a character style called blue. All it's doing is whatever the paragraph style is. So it doesn't matter what the paragraph style is. If I apply this character style blue to it, it's going to turn it blue. And you can see it's already doing it. And it's going to do it through one word. And if you click on there, you can actually see that we've got how many letters or digits or tab characters or all sorts of things. So we can have all sorts of things that will say, right, I want you to do the first sentence blue. Okay, and now you can see that entire first sentence is blue. So that's how you do that. And you see this in magazines all the time, where the first sentence or the first line, I think somewhere in there you can actually go up to, is there lines somewhere? I thought there was. No, maybe not. I'm sure there's one somewhere, but anyway. You can say up to one sentence and away it goes. I'm not sure why that first letter there is not. Oh, that's my cursor. Okay, so now my first sentence is blue. So I go and put the full stop over here. That's where my sentence ends. Okay. All right, so now we've got a really funky looking first paragraph style. Let's see, what else have we got in here? Is there anything else that we can do? Oh, there's grep styles. Grep is actually a Unix thing, right? So this is what you use to like search through a document for something. And InDesign has it built in. InDesign actually has a whole scripting thing built into it as well. You can do some crazy stuff in here. But the grep style is really handy because, like, for example, you might want to make it so that every time you write University of Auckland, it turns it University of Auckland blue, okay, and uses the university font or something like that. And so you can actually set up a grep style to search for a term. Okay, it could be your name. And so every time it does your name, it does it in italics or something like that. I don't know. And so you can actually get it to search for a document and change things based on that, which is really handy. And it is really simple. You just go new paragraph style, and it's going to apply, let's apply the blue to text. And what we're going to do here is I'm just actually going to write in here fuga, because I can see that word there. Cool, and it should have made fuga. Oh, hang on, sorry. I think I've got to put it in speech marks. It should have made fuga blue, but it didn't. Why not? Fuga. Oh, because that's in a different, it's not in my first paragraph style. Hang on, let's see, it, okay, et. There you go, now you can see the word it. Every time it pops up, it turns it blue. All right, I'm just going to delete that. All right, bullets and numbering. Now, this is really, really, really important. Controlling how numbering works through a document, especially like legal documents and things like that, where you've got like 1.1 and 1.2 and 1.2.1 and all this sort of crazy sort of stuff. The last thing you want to do is that manually, because then if someone says, oh, you should delete that paragraph, all of a sudden you've got to go through your entire document renumbering it. And then someone says, oh, you should actually move that one to there, and it's a complete nightmare. So getting your head around how numbering and bullet points, that we can make up our own custom bullet points as well, work is really, really important. I actually use this as well for doing controlling all my figure numbering. So I can make up a thing that goes figure 1, and so then if I delete figure 1, figure 2 becomes figure 1, and figure 3 becomes figure 2, and etc., etc. All right, so you'll notice up here we've got list type. Actually, first of all, okay, let's just do a list, okay? So here's my new list. I'm going to do, Fred, Bob, Henry. Okay, that's my numbered list, okay? So I'm going to select all those and go new, and go paragraph style 1. Remember, it's based on body, so that's cool. It's going to look just the same as body, but it's going to have a numbering. It's going to have a, well, first of all, let's do a bullet, okay? So if we go bullet, pretty simple. It ends up with a bullet. I can go to my indents and spacing and give it a left-hand indent there as well if I want to. And in fact, you've even got control of it down here as well. Okay. It's actually easier, I find, just to go up here and go, right, left-hand indent. Oops. Actually, click the right one. Is there. You've also got your tabs at this stage will control where that text ends up. All right, let's go back down to bullets and numbering. And you can choose your own characters. And in fact, you can even add whatever you like from whatever font you like. So you can have a hunt through different fonts and go, cool, I want a play button as my bullet point. Bam, I've now got play buttons for my bullet points. Note the text, I didn't need to highlight it, but anyway, I have. So now it says there text after, right? So at the moment it says little hat T, that means tab. So what it's going to do is it's going to put the bullet point in and then go tab. Okay? You could put a bullet point and then just a space. And in fact, if you click on here, you can see all of the weird and crazy characters that you could put there. So it could be a dash or all that sort of carry on. So it's all sorts of things. A hair space, a thin space, a figure space, or a punctuation space. Who knew there were so many spaces? All right, I'm just going to change this now to a numbered list. Okay, so numbered lists is a little bit more complicated. But we can have multiple numbered lists. So this is where you'd have like a normal numbered list and then a figure list or a quote list or something, I don't know. But you can have all sorts of different lists. So I would typically just have like figure lists is the big one for me. So I could create a new list. I'm just going to go with the default. And then we've got levels to this. The levels are like the legal level. So you have like 1.1 and then 1.2 and then 1.3 and then 1.31 and then 1.32 and all that sort of carry on. So we can do that as well. It doesn't have to be numbers. It could be letters or Roman numerals or whatever as well. So you've got the choice of doing that straight from the drop down. This is going to be the number, so that's what that means, number dot and then tab. Okay, so you can see one dot thing. So if I go, actually I don't want a dot, I want a dash, you can put there and go insert I want an M dash, which is the longer dash. Cool, and we should have ended up, I just can't see it because I think this text is too small. No? That was weird. Should have done, oh sorry, that was a space. Oh, I'm just going to type it in. So if I go, ching, should have, oh no, I just hadn't clicked out of the box. Huh. Cool, so now it's got one dash. So what you can put whatever you like in there. If I go, blah, it will put one, and then it'll go blah, and then it'll go tab, and then it puts the text in. Okay, so you can put whatever you like in there. So that's how I get the figure numbers, right? So I can go fig. In my case, if I'm doing my figure numbers, I would say fig dot the number, and that's about it really, because then I'd put my text after that. Cool. Oh, maybe a space. That'd be kind of handy. I should also call this, I'm going to call this figs, just so. because this is one that you'll probably want to use heaps, is the figure numbers. Where are we? I've lost it. There it is. So I'm going to go figure, and then I want a space. So I can go insert a M space, and I'll do a little space. Maybe that one's too long. Cool. Figure 1, Fred. Figure 2, Bob. Figure 3, Henry. Awesome. Actually, follow along with this one because I'm going to show you how to reference this as well, which is really friggin' cool. Character styles. So again, yeah, we can have, yeah, if I change it to blue, the figure number ends up with that character style being attached to it. Okay, so you could create your own little character style for figures and it was italic, okay, which they typically are. We can do that. In that case, actually, I'd probably do it to the entire paragraph in this case, rather than just the figure number. Okay. All right. Where are we? Bullets and numbering. Now, this one here is also really important. See, it continues from the previous number. We can say start from 1, and so then every time you hit, if you go, because I'll show you what actually, it's easier to demonstrate. Because what happens is if I go down here, oops. My keep options are kicking in again. That's a figure. And that's a figure. If that was a numbered list though, that kind of sucks. Because I've gone and started from, it goes 1, 2, 3, and then goes 4, 5. Awesome for figure numbers, not so awesome if it's like steps to do this and then steps to do something else and it's the numbering keeps continuing. That would kind of suck. So that's what our, somewhere in here, there is bullets and numbered lists. Here we go. So it says here, restart numbering. It'll change to 1, although it looks like I've got a screen refresh error. Here we go. So that's the easiest way to restart the numbering, is actually to go up to type bullet numbers and continue numbering, or change it back. So yeah, figures, you'd always have it continuing. If you've got separate ones, you might have to go in there and just get it to restart again. It's not that obvious if you've used other programs. It is once you get used to InDesign though. Yeah, or you can have a new style that resets the numbering. Anyway. Okay. Is there anything else I need to go through on there? I don't think so. Numbers. Oh, character color. Pretty obvious what that does. There's some more advanced features down here as well. Open type features, I wouldn't bother. Underline, so if you're trying to do an underline, we've got how it underlines that stuff. Again, have, I suppose for a chapter heading maybe, you might have it underlined. And so then that would go there. Normally with an underline it would be a character style because it's usually like a word, return today and you want to underline the word today. So you'll see the same options in the character styles. Likewise we've got strike through. And this is for doing EPUBs in HTML, which we're not going to go there. Okay. So that's your crash course in styles. Okay. So you can already see we've got a relatively good looking document. Maybe my headings needs a bit more work, but otherwise pretty cool. I wouldn't normally have this left indent that I've left in there from when I showed you indents, but normally I'd have that to the right hand side and I control the overall text just with the size of the text box. Otherwise it just gets a bit difficult to align things. And we'll see that also in object styles. I will just revisit the character styles. So if we just want to make this word italic, here's the character style. And I can go and create a new one. And we'll call it, italic. And I can say, just use the font style italic. Okay? that is a little bit tricky depending on the fonts you've used, okay? Because this will probably be bolder than the other ones because it's not, what did I use? Thin, I think it was. And so this font has a thin italic as well. So I might have to change it to thin italic, but then it doesn't really work the same. But anyway, you get the idea. Now, if I decide later on that I want to change all of my italic characters to be pink, I can change it in one place and all of them would change to pink. Cool. And then if I said that was ridiculous, what was I thinking? Actually, that's a good point. How do I go and remove that? I don't know how to get rid of the color actually. Because normally you just unselect something or delete it, but I can't actually do that because you have to select something. No, because then it'll be none. If I go reset to base and then change it, someone's going to be watching this and going, "Oh, you idiot, you should have just..." Where's my italic again? Here we go. Cool, okay. I mean, I could make up a, so yeah, normally if you just delete it, like if you've gone and put a number in something, if you just delete the number, it will disappear from the thing. It will go back to whatever the base is, so in this case, the paragraph style. Now, there is a gotcha, okay, and I see people do this all the time. They come and say to me, I can't change, I'm changing the style and nothing is changing. So, for example, and this is usually what's happened, is that a character style has been applied to something. And so when you're over here going and applying paragraph styles, it's still an italic. And it's like, what the hell? I didn't set italic anywhere. It's usually because there's a character style that's been done. Okay, and usually all you have to do is go to character styles and you'll see it highlighted. So if you are on your cursor's just sitting in a paragraph somewhere and you see that there's a character style highlighted, warning, that's what happened. So if we just go and select all that and go none, it'll go back. The other one as well is that you might have done something up here. So for example, if I make this bigger, okay, and you're changing body, and that one's not changing, it's called an override. And if you go and click down here, you'll see that it says body and it's got a little plus next to it. So that means it is body, but it's got an override, and in fact it even states what the override is that the font size has changed. Now you've got two options. You might be like, I love this font size, it's awesome. You know, my 3-year-old can read it, who reads faux Latin. You can go redefine style, and body has now become 18 point through your entire document. Okay, so that might not be a good idea. Or, I've just gone undo. I could say, no, apply body, clear the overrides, okay, and I've got a redraw error for some reason, there it goes. Okay, and so I got rid of the 18 point. So if you see a little plus next to something, that means that, oh actually there's a third option. That's all cool, I love this, but I want to use it elsewhere. If I go, well my cursor is in here, and I go and create a new style, okay, and I go and click on that, you'll notice that this is body with 18 point, and I can just call it 18 point body. Cool, and so I've just created a new style based on the changes that I made. And this is quite cool, because if you try to, like, for example, find a new font, sometimes it's nicer to go up here because it has examples of that font. You go, oh, actually, that's looking pretty cool. I can go in here and just go, right, redefine style, and boom. Everything is now that font. Okay, including my 18 point one, which was based on body. I changed body, so 18 point body also changed its font. Okay, it's still 18 point, but it's a different font. All right. If you decide that 18 point body was a really bad idea, oops, let's leave that. Just remember, get into the habit of if you're going to edit these, make sure you're not don't have any text selected. So if I go, don't like 18-point body, that was a bad idea, you can delete it. And I'll say, well, if you delete it, what are you going to replace it with? I'm going to replace it with body. Cool. And now all of the 18-point body text has disappeared and it's been replaced with body.